I have a story to tell that I've been holding on to for a while, but I have no choice but to tell it now because I need help and advice. I need to know what to do next because I fear that my life might be over soon. I just want there to be some kind of record that I exist, some kind of record of what happened to me and the horrible things that happened. I'm not asking you to believe my story, just take the time to read and listen. I work for a man who I will not name, who is rich and wealthy. He was then, and he is even wealthier now. The story of how I started working for him is a long and convoluted process. I was an aspiring actor when I was much younger and was trying desperately to get certain gigs. My career kind of floundered, but I was eventually recruited by someone who claimed to be his agent. This man is not a movie star, but he is rich beyond imagination and has his fingers in multiple industries around the world. He is a big deal in terms of wealth, which is why I did not believe this guy at all. This agent claimed that he could make all of my dreams come true and give me the wealth to pursue any project that I wanted, that his employer was looking for people that he could trust, who could do favors for him discreetly. I was told that I would do some menial jobs around the house, then some grunt work if I could be trusted, and then he would make sure that I got my shot. I call bullshit, and this agent pulls out a duffel bag full of cash like we're in a movie, and he asked me if I believe him now. He told me that all it would take is one meeting to prove that everything was legit and that the money would be mine, with much more to come. I was suspicious, to say the least. I did not really want to go anywhere with this guy alone. He could sense this, and so he called his employer, this wealthy man. I spoke to him on the phone. This was before you could clone voices convincingly with AI software, so it was obvious that it was him. The agent ferried me to some kind of compound that was slate gray and in the middle of nowhere in California. This was the only time I ever met the wealthy man in person. I will refer to him from now on as E for simplicity's sake. I only spoke to him for around 2 minutes, as he told me that he was incredibly busy. I was not allowed to talk. The entire conversation was literally just him talking at me, saying, "I am being serious, the money is legit, my agent will fill you in on the rest." And so things went on like that for a while. I mainly cleaned properties, was escorted with teams of workers to clear out compounds and warehouses while wearing gloves and using giant plastic bags, driving entire trucks full of items to warehouses across the country. Sometimes the journeys would take multiple days in total, there and back. The rules for this were always simple. We were never allowed to ask questions. If you ask a question, you were let go of immediately. That is the rule, and I'd seen it enacted right in front of my eyes. The second rule is, whatever cargo you were carrying, whatever message you were delivering, whatever place you were cleaning, you are not to look. Whatever it is none of your business. They had ways of knowing too. Cameras in trucks, cameras in warehouses. Sometimes they even sent people who were not real workers and were just there to spy on us, and they would report back every single little detail. This was pretty common for this low end of work. You would always have a handler of sorts. This was a wide-scale thing, and I can only tell you so much as to the purpose of all of this. It was obviously kept very heavily under wraps, and only certain people were hired. The people who were hired, I get the sense that they were mostly in the industry, but didn't make it. I'm talking actors and other creatives, people in the industry or who wanted to be in the industry, who didn't really have any connections, who were kind of isolated, I guess you could say. The next bit, I can infer a little bit more from and tell you more about though. One day, I get a call from the agent and he asked me to go in for another meeting. He is offering me more cash on a completion basis. He said that I was viewed as trustworthy and that the boss wanted me to be more hands-on with delicate matters, as he put it. I was never given a lot to go on. It was always, take this box to this person and tell them this, etc. Sometimes I would receive a few more instructions than that, but it never gave too much away. One of the first tasks that they ever asked me to take care of I actually drove up to this garage thing in San Jose. I was given some kind of cardboard box that clearly had a few items inside because it had a little bit of weight to it. Every single time I was to do something like this, I was given a new car. I never reused one, and I was never allowed to use my own vehicle. They would give me a car, whether a factory new or a rusted old piece of shit. They would pick out an outfit for me and then tell me to wear it. I'm not even kidding, but sometimes I had to report to another place or compound, and they would spend hours altering my hair, applying makeup to my face, just to make me look different every time or cover up some identifying marks. It was at this stage that I knew I was part of something really messed up, something completely not legal, and I guess I just had to compartmentalize it in my head, telling myself that this was the only way to make it, the only way to get my lucky break. Before, with all of the cleaning and that kind of stuff, I could just pass it off in my head as menial grunt work, even if I did know deep down that there had to be some kind of underlying motive. But this was very clearly meant to go underneath the radar. I never knew any names. We were told never to share them and to use a made-up identity. We were given fake identification cards, forged driving licenses, the works. It was never something I got to see in action. It was all just handed to me. Every time a job was done, the clothes would be taken away from me and burned. The car that I used would be driven away by someone else that I did not know the name of. So yeah, I was to go and deliver this box to one of the mechanics at this garage. He actually owned the place, I think. He was clearly pretty well off, considering the rent in a place like this. I think he worked mostly by himself, or with just one other guy too. I got in there, lugging the box, and he gave me the usual greeting. And when I did not reply to him, his face just dropped, like he already knew what was coming, like he'd seen this before. He immediately grabbed me and took me into his little office type thing, and I set the box down on the table. I'm not supposed to talk. I'm just supposed to deliver the package and the message, and stand by to confirm that it had been opened and received. But immediately, he was just peppering me with questions, and all I could do was keep shaking my head. He opened up the box, and I saw what was in there. He wasn't exactly subtle about anything. I wasn't even trying to see. He actually emptied everything out onto his desk, and he seemed really manic. The second that he does, I heard something plastic fall out. It was a DVD or something that had writing on the front. I couldn't really make out what it said, because it was written in that thick black marker and the handwriting was not the best. The first word looked to be a name, and the last word looked like it said location. But there were 2 whole sentences written across this DVD case. He also dumped some clothes out onto the table. They were sealed in these bags that you can vacuum seal, and they had some clothes inside of it. I'm talking a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, a jacket, a pair of muddy shoes that were totally caked in mud the whole way around, even a hat. It looked like an entire outfit, and all of the clothes had various stains and bits of mud all over them, especially the jeans. They looked to have something going down the inner seam of one of the legs, and this substance looked quite dark and congealed. This dude was freaking out, basically talking to himself, and while he was doing this, I had to tell him the final message. I had to tell him to grab his keys, lock up, and bring the sardines. It sounds stupid, but I imagine it was some kind of a code word I was not supposed to understand. This guy was on the floor, shaking and cradling himself. He was just muttering, "What am I gonna do? How do I tell my wife?" Again and again. In cases like this, I had a number that I could dial, an emergency line of sorts. It would go through to the agent who got me the job, who could then pass me on to someone else, like my employer. This happened. My employer was on the other end. He asked me to put him on speakerphone and exit the room. You know, just put the phone down on the table and then leave. I did so, and I did not return for about 5 minutes. This man walked out of the room and handed me my phone. He handed me the box that he had repackaged and was also carrying a rucksack with him. My boss was still on the line. He told me to drive him back, and so I did. I drove him all the way back to the compound in California where I had met with the agent earlier in the day. And that was literally it. That is the most I can give you. I can only guess it was dirt that my employer had on the man. Perhaps he'd been given cash to do something, or maybe he did something horrible that needed to be covered up and that was being used as leverage. All I can do is guess. I did hundreds of these errands, ranging anywhere from mundane to bizarre. Most often it would just be delivering a simple letter, and then I would take a payment. The other common outcome is that I would drive the individual back to the compound, and he would talk at length with whoever was there. After that, a completely different person would drive him back. I did this over a span of around 18 months. I did so many, I could fill a book with all of the crazy shit that I saw. I talked to mechanics, I talked to lawyers, I talked to low-level politicians in the state, I talked to bankers. You name it, and I had been sent to pay them a visit. It seemed like nearly everyone in the state was caught in this shit at one point, at least the people with any kind of wealth who looked like they were well off. And even people out of state too sometimes. I want to tell you about the final job I ever did at the end of those 18 months, because it's one that stands out to me, and the only thing I was ever able to glean any more information from. The man that I was sent to visit, he was actually a police officer. Not just any police officer, but I will not say more, just in case I reveal his identity and screw myself even harder. His family were out of town, visiting his wife's side of the family. He'd stayed behind. For what reason, I have no idea. I was given a pretty run-down old car and something really odd. It was like a cooler. You know, like something you put ice in and then put your beers in to cool down. It was sealed shut, obviously, and I had no intentions of tampering with it. I was told to carry this out as quick as humanly possible, a stipulation I had never been given before this time. I was given a key and directions to a side road where I could hide my vehicle and gain access to the back of the property. I was told to unlock the door and then to announce myself. I was given some kind of a code phrase to say that I don't really remember. The second that I made it inside, I put the cooler on the kitchen counter and shouted out, and this man just came running. He was visibly sweating, and he was panting too. His pupils looked massive. He looked as if he were high on something. I pointed to the container and told him that I had a message, and he told me to get the fuck out of his house right now or he would shoot me for trespassing. I told him that I could not leave until the message was received. I told him he knew the rules. This sent him into a frenzy. He ran at me and practically lunged at me. I was not supposed to ever fight back, but I tried my best to fend him off without causing any harm, because I had no idea what he might do to me. He managed to get me into a grapple from behind, and he eventually managed to lock his arm around my neck. At some point, I felt something cold touching the side of my neck, and I heard a cold click. There was no reasoning with this guy at all. He seemed to be out of his mind, and he was just screaming at me right in my ear. He was telling me to call my boss right now. He told me if I did not call him, then he would blow my head off, and that no one would ever find my body. I tried to talk him down, but all I got for my trouble was a smack across the back of my head with the gun. I don't know where exactly it hit me, but my ears were ringing after that. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and just started dialing. I did not even get a chance to put the phone to my ear before he snatched it from me and put it on speakerphone. It was my agent, and it only took a few seconds before my employer ended up on the line. This man was immediately shouting at E, telling him that he was going to blow my brains out if he didn't call it off. I don't know what that meant. They had a bit of a back and forth for a little while. They were talking in some kind of code that I really did not understand at all. E basically told him that if he killed me, then his secret would be out, that he would be finished and never see the light of day again. E told him to come quietly and sit and talk, otherwise that would be it. But the officer refused. He told E no. He told E if he did not listen to his demands and carry them out right then, that I would die. The line went silent for around 5 seconds, and then E just answers him really calmly and matter-of-factly, and he just said, "Okay, kill him then. If that's what you want to do, I can't stop you." After that, all I heard was the phone disconnected sound. At this point, I was fearing for my life. I have been attacked before on these jobs, threatened, but I've never been so close to death with a gun pressed right up against my head. I did not even bother begging. This guy was clearly out of his mind and could not be reasoned with. I just clenched my eyes shut, and I prayed and I waited for the end. But after a few seconds, he pushed me down to the ground into a corner, and he told me not to move, otherwise he would kill me. He brought the cooler down to the ground, and he grabbed me by the neck and brought me closer. He waved the gun in my direction and told me that I had to see it too. He told me that I was a part of this now, and that I would have to suffer the same fate. What I saw in this box, it's going to sound insane, but I promise you, I am being 100% deadly serious. There was a hand inside this cooler type thing, a human hand. It was quite pale and almost bluish in places, and looked to have been dead for quite a while. The only other key thing I could make out about this hand was that this hand had a ring on the ring finger. It looked like some kind of ornate wedding ring, and it clearly had an inscription that I could not make out. At the sight of this, the officer just started sobbing. He actually tossed the gun away and just started full on sobbing. He grabbed me and begged me to help him. He told me that he would do anything, and all I could do was tell him that I could not help, and that I had a message for him. It was a set of coordinates. I remember that I looked them up after the fact, and it was the location of a building, but I don't think it was a home. The entire message was just those coordinates and a date and a time. After that, I resealed the cooler and took it back in my car. The officer was supposed to stay there. I remember seeing him on the news just a few weeks later. I think it said he got caught in the crossfire of a gang shootout and he died trying to put a stop to it. I'm not sure I really believe that, given everything that I knew and saw. I had to go back that day. I had to speak to E one last time. Again, I never got the chance to speak or explain myself. He told me that I was done, and that was my last job. He told me that I had failed, and that I could not be trusted anymore. He told me that he knew that I knew the contents of the package. I couldn't even explain that he forced me, that I didn't do it willingly. He gave me a wad of cash and made me sign some documents that I was not allowed to read. After that, he took my phone, my clothes, anything else they had given me, and he handed me a brand new phone, a burner phone. He told me to keep the phone charged at all times and turned on too, that I would be in big trouble if I didn't. He told me that I was now in his debt. And that was it for the past however many years. That was all I was told, that I was now indebted to him and that I would have to pay it off eventually. The only reason I'm even typing this story right here and now is because I got a message on that phone just the other day, giving me coordinates and telling me what to bring, and I am terrified. I was told it was time to finally settle my debt. I'm working in the industry now. I managed to make some inroads, not in anything big. I don't think most people would recognize me, but my life was just starting to get on track. I was finally getting somewhere. And now, this out of nowhere. I don't know what to do. I don't think that hiding is even an option. I don't know what they are going to do with me, or to me. I don't know what they're going to make me do. I wish I had never gotten involved. I really, really need help. Okay, I actually have quite a few weird stories that I want to share with you all. But they're quite short, so I will dump them. So, back in 1995 at nighttime, I went hunting with my father and uncles in Minas Gerais in Brazil. It was about a 3-hour walk from the farm, and we got nothing. We were heading back at around 2 a.m., and when we could see a light up in the hills. Nobody lives there at all. I suppose it could have been more people hunting, and that's what we thought at the time too, so we moved closer to check it out. We got within 1 or 2 kilometers of the light. It was coming from a tree nearby. The best way I can describe it is that it was night for everything in those hills except for that tree. It was like the Matrix had just bugged out. It was just this one spot completely lit up, and the rest was all darkness. Me and my father wanted to check it out in person, but my uncles were crapping their pants and begged us not to go. They told my father to think of my infant sister, and eventually he agreed to leave. That tree kept on shining in the hill as we went home. I went hunting years after, and I never saw anything of the sort in that region ever again. Now for the next one. I used to work for a major metropolitan city subway system. I would frequently be in the tunnels and abandoned stations surveying the structure. We usually worked in small teams, but today, I only had one guy with me. We were at an abandoned station. There was nothing too spooky about it, it was just old. It was basically excess, as other nearby lines had been made, and they just passed through the spot. I was at the other side of the station with my coworker when I could hear someone running in dress shoes. I shot my attention to the area where the sound was. There was this guy in a bowler and dressed really nicely, and he's at the old stairway to the platform. I say, "Hey, you can't be here." I get no answer. I say it again. "Hey man, you lost or something?" The guy just looks at me. He looks like a video game character in facial structure, almost made up, not natural. His mouth is moving like he's saying something, but I can't hear anything. I move closer, figuring he's just too far away to hear properly. He suddenly bolts to the tracks and jumps in, running into the tunnel. My partner is like, "What the fuck just happened?" We look down the tunnel, and we see nothing. We call it in, and they ended up shutting the tunnel down a bit to have guys look for this dude, thinking he might be out of it or on drugs or something. They did find a bowler cap at the far end of the tunnel, right before a split in the tracks. It was placed ever so carefully on some light signal. Here's another story. This happened to me when I was 17 years old at my house. It was about 9 p.m. in a rural suburb. I forgot that my homework was in my Jeep in the driveway. I go outside to retrieve my homework. My rear door is locked from the inside, so I unlock the passenger side front door and I lean over the middle console to the back seat. I am searching for my homework when I feel like someone is watching me. I look directly left at the rear passenger window. I see a pure white face with black holes for eyes and a mouth like those Mardi Gras masks. As I stare, I realize there is no body attached at all. It lunges at the window. I get the fuck out of there. I jump out of my Jeep and immediately look underneath my Jeep and to the side of my house. I realize it was not someone messing with me. I ran inside and accused my dad of messing with me, but he wasn't. He then told me a similar story that happened to my uncle. I have not seen the thing since then. So, I was camping with my family on a rather secluded beach near San Quentin in Ensenada. There is this dormant volcano nearby. My dad suggests that we should check out the crater. Being as adventurous as him, I agreed to tag along. I hop in his old Jeep, and we get on a road we believe leads up to the volcano. It's mid-November, so by 5 or 6 in the afternoon, it was already getting dark. We had been driving for about an hour, and we were not really seeing the peak getting any closer. I am getting bummed. Instead, the road is actually getting narrower. We are both getting worried. It is already around 7:30, and it's already pitch black outside. Worst thing is, we finally find the end of the road. There are only rocks and mostly bushes around. At least there's a road with clear vehicle tracks. Ahead of the path is fairly flat, and it seems to go up. At this point, the feeling of adventure and common sense are conflicting. We stop to discuss the predicament that we are in at the moment. something suddenly breaks the monotony of the trip. Something rises up from among the bushes to our right. It's a single red glowing eye/orb that comes up as if it was startled by the car's engine. Me and my dad are silent, trying to figure out what sort of wildlife we stumbled upon. The options narrow when I realize the size of this thing, or rather, its height. From my seat, I could see it almost at eye level, so maybe 1.5 meters, or like 5 feet tall. It's still silent all around. This thing is still staring at us. Suddenly, it moves closer, as if it took a step forward. My dad shifts gears to reverse, sensing that this thing might not actually be wildlife. The noise of the shifting gears seems to startle the creature, and so the thing makes its exit. This motherfucker starts bouncing, silently and floaty, as if the thing was made of paper. It is still looking at us, every single bounce going higher, until on its last one, it flies off out of sight. Needless to say, we booked it back to camp. To this day, I am not sure what we saw. Okay, so when this happened to me, I was camping with some friends. We were walking along this path with my friend, talking really loudly. My friend asked me, "Oh crap, did you bring the extra sleeping bag for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got it, we're good." We keep on walking. We are getting pretty far away from camp. Suddenly, from the brush, across the stream that our path paralleled, I suddenly hear this weird sound. It's like, "Did you like someone trying to mimic speech but really disjointed and like they don't know the actual language, just trying to mimic sounds but really poorly. It was so inhuman sounding, like an animal almost. It repeats this several times. Each and every time, it sounds more and more like my friend. We are terrified. We start running back. I hear leaves moving behind us. I am way too afraid to look behind me. And then suddenly, from behind us in a low whimper, I can hear, "Wait, I'm hurt." It sounds just like me. I am crying at this point. I can feel the tears just rolling down my face. We just keep on running. As we get closer to the opening into the field that we were camping in, the bushes are much thicker. We are not really fit people, and we have been running pretty hard, so it was tough. I was gasping for air. And then, directly from the right of us, I hear, "Tired, yet." It sounds like her again, with almost a bark at the end. I am shaking so hard at this point. I turn and look back behind me. I see this massive mound of fur in the bushes turn and go back the way we came. We get back to camp and tell our friends exactly what happened. They, of course, do not believe us. We refuse to stay there that night. We get in her car and drive to town and sleep in a cheap motel. At about 10 p.m., my friend's phone rings. It's my friends at the camp on the line, and they say, "Jesus, will you guys give it up? It's been 2 hours. You're not scaring us. You're just keeping us from sleeping." They sound really, really pissed off. My friend on the phone starts getting really hysterical, telling them to just leave. But they're convinced that we drove back there and are in the woods, yelling that we are hurt and for them to come and help us. I turn up the motel TV and let them hear that we are in town. They hang up immediately and drive to our motel, and they spend the rest of the night with us. The next day, we go back for our shit, and we never go camping ever again. Okay, so when this happened to me, I was drunk at a friend's house, which was located in the woods. I could see a fire in the distance, just close enough for it to be seen from his house. It was like a glint. I had no idea what it was. It just looked like a small fire, either a campfire or some trash being set on fire. We just sat there and stared at it, talking to each other, asking what it could be. And then we noticed that we could see something moving. My friend goes inside and grabs the shotgun. This was way out in the sticks. His family owns acres of land. He then came back outside and said that we had to go and check the thing out, that it could be moonshiners. This has actually happened to him before. I ran inside and got a flashlight. I was scared shitless, but I did my best tough guy act. We walked to the tree line, and we could see that something was moving around and groaning. My friend yells out, asking, "Who is there?" We walked closer, and it was not an animal. It was actually a person. It was a skinny person with long shaggy hair laying in front of a tent. My friend pointed the gun at the person and told him to fuck off. When he stood up, a vibrator fell out of his ass. Come on, bruh. The weird groaning and moving was him fucking himself in the ass with a vibrator. We ran, called the cops, and they never found the guy. Only the tent with a cover in it, and the vibrator. Yeah, police. This guy right here. The crime? Busting a nut. The crime? Anal fucking penetrate, whatever.